Welcome back to RGR. I want to do a vlog today because I think there's a topic that hits the Chiefs pretty hard, but it hits the whole league that isn't getting enough play right now. And a report came out that really shed some light on what this season might start to look like and how they're going to get up to speed. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit the sub button and the bell notification right now so that you get the next video and you know when it comes out. Leave your comment below. I want to know what you guys think, and leave a thumbs up if you like this one. So what the report was, it was Charles Robinson over at Yahoo, a guy who, the podcast partner with Terez Paylor on the Yahoo NFL podcast. Very interesting that they are trying to move forward, that they think they can have head coaches in the buildings by next week. I talked about this on the Locked On Chiefs podcast real quick this week, but I want to go into some more detail. There's already some facilities that are starting to open up. Rumor is that there's people going into Dallas. The Ravens have announced publicly that theirs is open. And as head coaches get in, staffs are going to come quickly behind. They might try to drag it out. I don't think that that's going to end up happening, because once you get everybody on the path towards wanting to return, prepping to return, I think that's going to be important. Now, what happens as they're talking about then doing some kind of mini camp and getting players on some kind of field, likely just at the practice facilities, to get a mini camp in, get a little bit of runaround done in mid-June, early July. And that's usually the time when the players are off. So that's going to be interesting. And the NFLPA has to sign off on that as well, because it's usually a time when players are not on the field. But all that is lead up to looking at training camp and what training camp might look like. And for those of you that have run into me out at training camp, I always go the same time of year. I always try to get the best beat on the players after they've played a preseason game, because that's really when you get an idea of what all the practice has led up to. And I want to see what happens after that. So I usually have a very specific time that I go every year. And you might notice some footage here from years past. But I think it's going to look very different this year. Right now, the rumor going around is that training camp may be closed to the public for the first time since I can even remember. And what that means is it doesn't bring in the revenue. The Chiefs camp in particular doesn't bring revenue to Western Missouri. For teams around the league, some of them do stay home, but a lot of them go away and are in position to charge admission to make a little bit of money for the site or whatever. And in this case, in Kansas City, I don't know the impact of the revenue stream for Missouri Western in particular, but it can't be insignificant when you think about everything that it brings to town. Maybe not just getting out onto the field for the fans, but bringing money into town. I know that haul is pretty good, and a lot of people make that trek. I see a lot of traffic when I'm up there, and I usually come up each morning, get out there as early as the gates open so that I can get a good vibe on what's going on. It's going to change my process. Let me know what it's going to do for your process. If you're somebody that goes to camp a lot, let me know what you think, if they let us in at all. So at this point, I'm starting to make alternate plans for how I can get some information. Chiefs BR has been good to me in getting me some of the information, some of the Zoom calls that you've seen here. That will continue, but the training camp visit might be out this year. I have a lot of footage that I was going to put together pre-hand, so keep an eye out for that and just see what the process is like. But if they can't have fans, what does that do? It cuts down on, obviously, autograph signing time. It streamlines what the team can do in terms of meeting times, meals, etc. But that's still a stretch away. That's just the public factor. Even if teams are allowed to have fans at training camp, you might see that autograph sessions don't happen anymore, because they are going to be concerned, and the NFLPA in particular is going to be concerned about the exposure that the players have to anybody who might have this virus. And a lot of folks will have recovered, and I know there's mixed research out there from Dr. Fauci and the national leaders, as well as some of the states, about whether they feel folks will have adequate antibodies to then fight off and be immune. There's some research that shows there may not be an immunity that is built up from a single go at this virus, which means you could have people who've been sick previously and have recovered who could be coming to camp in contact with players that could get them sick again. And here's the thing, and here's the biggest concern overall about why they might not let fans to camp, and even if they do, how it's going to change things, is because once you get one person inside a locker room that is sick, and more importantly, it is exposed before they get sick, before they're symptomatic. Athletes are highly tuned body types. Sometimes their immune systems actually are overdrawn and can get ahead of things. They might see symptoms earlier, they might not. They might not see any symptoms at all and yet still be carrying it around. And once that spreads inside of a locker room, you could have a serious issue with having a large group of your roster sick all at once, to the point that I'm sure some teams are concerned about being able to field a team, especially early weeks in the season, but definitely as it goes on. Now, I'm sure the NFLPA and the NFL are going to go through scenarios and protocols to try and limit team-to-team contact. Obviously, you're going to play games. You're going to breathe on each other. This is a respiratory virus from what the research says to this point. So I think they have to be careful. And you never know what underlying issues could be exposed once you get this thing. So I think it's really interesting how they're going about this. And letting fans in is certainly one step. If they do have training camp and they elect not to go up to St. Joe, that could be a different scenario altogether where there'll be no fans. They don't let fans into the practice facility or to the fields there, which is the most likely place for them if they're not going to go to St. Joe. It would be to see the Chiefs practice down at that would be the most likely scenario, is if teams aren't going to go away, if the Chiefs aren't going to go to St. Joe, you're probably not going to have any access to training camp. They'll work at the facility because it's there, because it's easy, and they can, again, limit exposure to other people and the virus in particular. It lets them try to get some work done. Now, I hear a lot of questions going out after this story from Charles Robinson about how they could quarantine, how they could set up camp where the players might have to, even though they're in town, or they might be living at a hotel situation, and there's plenty right around where the Chiefs practice facility is, where the headquarters is. So that would be an option for them. And I don't know that it is anything outlandish to think that they might try to set that up so that you're controlling a little bit more, again, the exposure, outside exposure, especially if you feel that there's a chance that the team could get sick or could pass the virus around. They don't want them going home and exposing families and that kind of thing as well. They have to be concerned about the players' families at home, and that may come down to them keeping them in a facility that's close to the practice facility, almost as though it were the dorms up in St. Joe. So you could see that as well. The real question for me is going to be, what does this do to meeting time, practice time on the field? Because right now, both the NFL and Andy Reid made comment about this as well, is that he's planning as though training camp is going to go according to plan, as normal. Maybe the location will change, but he still has a plan for how to do that. Evidently, he has a plan for how to do things under some changed rules as well. So Andy Reid, of course, is a supreme planner. And I think we all, even Steve Spagnuolo, illustrated in his comments to the press last week about just how organized Andy Reid is and how he keeps everybody else organized. That's key for this process as well. What it means is that we're probably going to see something atypical. If all of this comes off perfectly and they get head coaches back in next week, that would be the first week of June, and they're able to do some kind of mini camp just to get the players together on the field at the same time towards the end of June, maybe even the first week of July. That still allows them to try to start training camp on time. And that, I think, is what solves their dilemma of getting the season started correctly. Now, we've all heard from national research and the governmental agencies warning about a second wave in the fall of this virus. And if that happens, that's definitely something I feel is going to be more likely than not, but that's going to affect attendance at games. Right now, if they're going to have training camp, they assume they're going to play on time, they should have games on time. Whether they'll be fans or not, that's an update for another day. Hopefully we'll have some more information about that. But right now, if everything goes according to plan and they can work out the exposure issues with the NFLPA and get this kind of mini camp going, there's a chance that you might see training camp not only start on time, but actually run about on its normal pace, which gives us a lot of hope for the NFL season and for the Chiefs' chance at repeating in general. I think that that's a good sign. I think, again, we've talked about it in the past, returning 20 of 22 starters puts them in a very good position for that. But there are, especially on the defensive side, some rookies that have to play. That's going to be important. So that's it for today. I wanted to really specifically dig into this topic about training camp because it's going to be super important as it comes around. So we'll have more film review for you. Dan will be back. I'm doing some film review. A lot of stuff coming. Memberships are coming. I have some great new gear on the way as soon as all the legalities are done. So keep an eye out for that. Hope you guys are having a good one. Stay safe. Protect yourselves so that you're able to get out and watch some football when you get a chance. Thanks for checking this one, and make sure you click on these as well. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you next time.